Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us for our very final freezing exercise class. The last 4 weeks have really flown by, but hopefully you've all enjoyed your time in this webinar. So my name is Shelly. I'm a physiotherapist with Parkinson Society BC. I know that we have a few new people today, so I'm going to do a little bit of a review of all of the different things that we learned in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully we can catch everybody up to speed. Now, if you are new to this final session, you can always review the recording at a later date. So all the classes are recorded. So if you wanted to check the recording for the first class, the second class, and the third class, you can, of course, do that after you try today's class. Okay, well, before we start today, I also want to just draw your attention to the very top of the chat box. So the chat box should be open on your right-hand side of the screen, or if it's not open, it's usually in a collapsed icon at the bottom of your screen. So there'll be a little circle, a little blue circle that looks like a chat box. If you open it, it should pop up. And then at the very top of the chat box, I've just put in our email address, which is info@parkinson.bc.ca. And it's just there so that if you wanted to contact us with any questions, any comments, or any suggestions for future webinars, we would love to hear from you. So I've said this before, but since the whole pandemic started, or I guess when we started noticing the pandemic in March, we've started bringing out a lot of different webinars, and a lot of the different topics we have are actually based on suggestions that we get. So for example, this freezing webinar was a suggestion from somebody who wanted to learn practical tips for navigating freezing episodes, and same with our last balance exercise series. So if you have an idea for any future webinars, let us know. We would love to hear from you. And after today's class, if you would like to go to our website, you can look under our event page and look at our future webinars. So usually we do a different exercise series every month, but for the month of, starting next week until December, we're doing a dance, the holiday series instead. So it's not an exercise class per se, but it is a dance class, and it will be on modified repertoire for the Nutcracker Ballet. So if anybody's a fan of the Nutcracker Ballet, feel free to sign up for that. And then in January, we do have a hand and dexterity exercise series that we're bringing back. So we did that in the summer, and it was very popular. We had a very big wait list. So we decided to bring it back for the second edition. So if hand and dexterity is your issue, sign up for that coming up in January. Okay, well, let's get started. So as always, you're going to need a chair to sit in, which you can see it set up right behind me. And I've also got a second chair there in the corner. And the reason I have two chairs is because when we stand up and we start moving around, it's always nice to have two chairs so you can hold on to on either side if you would like. But of course, by all means, if you don't want to hold on to anything, you don't have to. But the option is there if you like. We're also going to need a little object that you can step over during our class today as a bit of an obstacle. So a tissue box would work great, or a purse maybe, or something that you have lying around that's not too big, but something that you can step over. I think that's it for me. So let's get started. The class is recorded, so feel free to revisit that at a later date if you'd like. Okay, I'm going to move back now to my chair, so hopefully you can see me and hear me. Okay, so as always, we're going to start in our chair, and we're going to start by shuffling just a little bit forward in our chair, just so we're not slouching back or leaning to the side. We want to have that nice active sitting where you're sitting right on top of your sit bones. And we're going to just open those legs a little bit wider. From here, we're going to bend our trunk forward and reach down towards the floor. So really round your back here. Trying to reach your fingertips to the floor if you can. And then from here, we're going to reach your fingertips all the way up towards the ceiling as far as you can possibly stretch. And then we're going to repeat that again. rounding your back, reaching down towards the floor as far as you can go, dropping that head. And then we're gonna sit up nice and tall, reach the fingertips up to the ceiling as far as you can possibly reach, as if somebody's pulling those fingers to the ceiling. Let's do 2 more. Reaching down, rounding that back. And then we're reaching those fingertips all the way up as far as you can. Good. 1 more. Reaching down to the floor. And then we're reaching all the way up to the ceiling as far as possible. And we're going to relax the arms down, bring the feet back in. From here, we're going to do some arm circles. You're going to circle those arms backwards, as big and as wide as you can possibly go. Now, if you're sitting in a chair with arm rest, just be a little bit mindful that we're not hurting our arm by hitting the armrest. So you might want to shuffle forwards a little bit more or have the arm slightly wider so we miss the armrest. And if you're somebody with shoulder problems and you can't reach up quite this high, that's okay, don't worry. Just go as far as you feel you can. Good. And now with every circle, we're going to make the circle smaller and smaller and smaller until you're doing a very small pulsating quick circle, as quick as you can and as small as you can for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're going to swing the arms in the opposite direction this time. So if we swung the arms backwards last time, we're going to swing them forwards this time. So starting as big as we can, really making sure we're not hitting the armrest. So have your arms a little bit wider if your chair is quite bulky. And with every circle, we're just going to make it smaller and smaller and smaller until you're doing a very small, quick, pulsating type circle for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Good. This time we're going to float the arms up to a T shape, opening the chest, shoulders down, and we're going to tip sideways, almost like you're trying to reach that bottom hand to the floor and the top hand to the ceiling, except as you're doing this, you want to just make sure your chest is open forward, so we don't want to see the chest bending down like this. You want to make sure your chest is facing forward, so you really get that stretch on the side of the body. Good. And coming back up. Good. Are you still breathing? Same to the other side. Long necks, shoulders away from the ears. Feeling that stretch on the outside of the body. Chest open forward. That's it. Good. And we're going to come back up. And we're going to drop the arms and place them onto our hips. Now, from here, if you would like a challenge, you can feel free to bring those legs in and squeeze those thighs together. Or if you find this a little bit more difficult, then please have those legs open. So let me show you the movement first, and then you can decide. We're going to sit up as tall as possible, reaching the crown of our head towards the ceiling. Now, keeping your back nice and straight, nice and tall, you're going to hinge forward at the hips, leaning forward without the back curving. And then you're going to lean back as far as you can without the back touching the back of the chair. And back up again. So keep going. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see me. So the movement is like this. Keeping the back nice and straight. We're rocking forward onto our sitting bones and then backwards onto our sitting bones without collapsing into the chair, right? So you want to use that tummy muscle, use your trunk muscle to hold yourself up. And the reason we have our hands on the hips is just so we then don't use them to cheat and try to support ourselves. So have your hands on those hips. And you're going to rock forwards and backwards, as wide, as big of a movement as you can without the feet lifting off the floor, without you collapsing into the chair. Keeping that back nice and straight if you can. Crown of the head still reaching to the ceiling, even as you're doing this movement. Well done. We're going to go for 6, 5, 4, nice and tall with the spine. 3, 2, last one, and back to the middle. Stay where you are. I'm just going to turn my chair around again so you can see me. So, same position, hands on our hips. We're going to now rock sideways. Now, if you have a look at my body, you're keeping the spine as long as possible. So I'm not doing this. So can you see how this movement is very different? So I'm not curving my spine like this, but instead the whole body moves together. So you can see how my hip is lifting off the chair. And then you do the same thing on the other side. So your body is completely still so that your hip lifts off the chair as well. So imagine yourself like one of those green army men, the little toys that kids have, the little green army men. So you're very stiff and your whole body is moving as a block. So think about lifting that hip off as you're leaning side to side, holding that balance. Hands still on the hips, no cheating with those arms. And of course, you can imagine if you have your legs squeezing in together, this is a lot harder because you have a smaller base of support. So if you would like a challenge, see if you can squeeze those knees together and still tip side to side with that hip lifting off, right? Hip lifting off each side. So I don't want it to be like this. This is not the same movement. You want your body to be completely still, the whole body moving as a unit. Now you can probably imagine what's coming next with our name writing from our previous weeks. But for now, keep going side to side here with the leaning, thinking about lifting each of the hips up as you're going. Well done, everybody. Let's do 4 more. And 3 more. 2 more, last one, and rest for a second. Okay, so now that we've learned the forward and backward movement and the side to side movement, we're going to put it together. So you're going to imagine you have a light coming out of the top of your head pointing up at the ceiling. You're going to use this light to write your name on the ceiling using your whole body. So for example, my name's Shelly. I'm going to use what we just learned, our whole body moving, to write my first and last name on the ceiling above, imagining you got a light coming out of the top of your head. Noticing here how my whole body's moving in a unit. My spine is nice and long. I'm not curving, right? So I'm not writing by curving my body like this, but I'm keeping my body nice and straight. And I'm really rocking over those sit bones. So do join me here. Writing your first and last name. Trying to keep your body as straight as possible. Now, if your first and last name is relatively short, like mine, you can try doing it twice through or even 3 times through. And what you're trying to do here is to write that name as big as possible on the ceiling. Really practicing that weight shifting ability over your hip bones, using those tummy muscles to keep yourself upright. Now, you'll see that my legs are together, so that makes it a little bit more tough. By all means, you can have those legs separate, and that's going to make it slightly easier. So if it's too challenging for you, by all means, separate the legs. Don't worry if you have to modify, because as long as it's challenging you, then that's good enough, right? So you don't have to do the same thing as your neighbor. Just do the exercise at a level that works for you. How we doing? Hopefully you're still with me. Now, if you've been with us for several weeks and you're pretty good at this by now, I want you to try challenging yourself even more by seeing how quickly you can write the name without losing the amplitude of the movement. So without making the writing too small, see if you can write your name on the ceiling with that imaginary light as quick as you can. And of course, you can rise up onto your toes here. So your feet, you can rise up onto your toes here with those legs squeezing together if you want a little bit more of a challenge. Let's just do another 10 seconds here. So you can finish off your name. Well done, everybody. And rest. Good. Okay. We're now going to practice our sit to stand. I'm going to turn my chair sideways so you can see me. You stay where you are. Now, I'm putting a chair in front of me. The reason I've got a chair in front of me is because a lot of the times when we stand up, what we do is we try to use momentum, and then as soon as we swing up, we topple forward, or a lot of the times we grab hold of something and try to pull ourselves up. So we want to try to avoid that today. But I have a chair in front of me just so that way, if you need to have something in front of you to steady yourself, please do. We're going to try our best not to rely on the arms to pull ourselves up, but you can have something in front of you just to help support you. So here's what we're going to do for our sit to stand. Now, if you've been with us for several weeks now, you can go ahead and start your sit to stand already, but I'm going to take some time and explain it to anybody who's new today. So you're going to have your feet flat on the floor, shuffle to the very front of your chair, right? So we don't want to be like this, because if you're leaning back, you're definitely going to have a really tough time standing. So we want to shuffle our bottom forward, feet flat on the floor. From here, you're going to imagine someone's grabbed the front of your shirt and they're pulling you forward as far as possible. So you're going to bring your body forward, and you want to bring it so far forward that your weight is over both of your feet. Can you see that? So my entire weight is over both of my feet. Then from here, you're going to push the floor away from you as hard as you can. Push the floor away from you. Suck that bottom in, lift that chest up to stand. And you can hold on if you need. Holding here for just a couple of seconds, making sure when we're standing, we're not leaning like this or leaning back, right? You want your weight to be over your legs, because if your weight is not over your legs, you're going to fall. So we want to practice keeping our weight over those legs. And then we're going to sit down again. Same thing. As you're sitting down, keep your weight over your legs. Don't move back too far. Keep your weight over your legs. Bend that chest forward and touch the bottom down. So we're going to do it slow a couple more times, just so we really get the technique here. Let's try again. Bring that chest forward as far as you can until your weight is directly over your feet. And then you're going to push down into the floor as hard as you can. Squeeze your bottom cheeks and chest up. Hold it here. Keep your weight over those legs for 3, 2, 1. And we're sitting back down, bending those knees, sticking the bottom back, keeping your weight over your legs, and sit down. Good. How are you doing? I know lots to think about, but you're doing well. Keep trying. Okay, in your own time now, keep trying to do the sit to stand technique, really thinking about pushing down into the floor as hard as you can. So a lot of the times when we try to stand, we always think up, up, up. We need to stay up. But instead of thinking up, if you think push down into the floor, it actually cues those muscles better. So if you ever need balance, or you need to have stability, always think pushing down into the floor, okay? So don't think up, think push down into the floor as hard as you can, almost like push down to go up. Let's keep doing this for a few more rounds. See if you can do 2 more sit to stands in your own time. Doesn't have to be fast. Keep trying to weight shift right over those legs. So the purpose of doing this slow is to practice keeping our weight aligned over our base of support. Because as soon as our center of gravity moves beyond the boundaries of our base of support, that's when we have falls and balance issues. So really take this opportunity to give yourself that time to practice keeping your weight over your feet. Good. And on your last stand, I want you to stay standing. I'm going to move some chairs. If you're still in the middle of your sit to stand, please keep going. But when you do stand up, I want you to stay standing. Okay. So Now you can see I've got a chair on my left and a chair on my right. So this is what I was mentioning earlier about having something on either side. You don't need to, but it helps with balance. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by marching on the spot. And as we're marching on the spot, you'll notice here I'm not doing it very fast. But what I am doing is I'm trying to use my chair here, so this one, the chair here, I'm trying to match my knees to the height of the chair. So if you are holding onto a chair, please use that visual as a way to get those knees up nice and high, especially if you're someone who finds yourself freezing every time you try to march. Think about lifting up to match the height of the chair and go slow. Because remember, the faster we move and the more asymmetrical we move, the more likely you'll trigger a freezing episode. Now, as you're doing this, you'll probably feel that one leg feels a lot more difficult than the other, and that's fine. We're just going to try to match both legs, okay? So if your right leg is lifting higher than your left, try to get your left up just as high as your right. So we're going for symmetry here as we're lifting. And another thing to note here as well is if you look at my body as I'm doing the marching, you'll see that I'm transferring my weight to the supporting leg as I'm lifting, and then I transfer my weight over to the other supporting leg. So don't try to just keep your body in the middle like this, because then we're not really using our muscles to balance, but we're relying on our arms. So practice letting yourself weight shift over the supporting leg. So remember, the most important thing here is we're trying to keep our center of gravity over our base of support, no matter what you're doing. And that's going to help you with your balance, okay? So you're trying to keep your center of gravity over your base of support. Really taking this time to do this slow so you can practice weight shifting and controlling where you move your center of gravity. Well done. Let's see if we can do 5 more marches here. Good. 4 left. Lifting those knees nice and high, trying to get them as symmetrical as possible. 3 more. 2 more. Get those knees up nice and high for the last one. And rest. Okay, good. So I'm going to grab my little block, so you can see my block here. You can use a tissue box or something that you can step over on the floor. Now I'm going to put this right in front of me here. We're going to practice, so you can see that hopefully, that little block. We're going to practice stepping over an obstacle. So we're standing in front of this little box, so you can see that box here. I'm going to start with one of my legs, doesn't matter which one. You're going to lift the leg as high as you can to match the height of the chair. Remember, or bring the knee up to be as high as the chair you're holding onto. We're lifting that knee as high as possible, and then you're stepping forward over this block as far as possible. So we're not touching the block. And then from here, the front leg, you push down as hard as you can, lift the knee as high as you can to return back to the middle. Same thing, other side. Lift that knee as high as possible, step over the obstacle as far as possible, and then you lift the knee up as high as possible and bring it back down. Now, as you're doing this movement here, so do join me, as you're doing this movement here, I want you to do this slow. So I don't want to see anybody do this fast. And the reason I say that is because when you're doing it fast, you're not actually getting the benefit of the balance challenge here, because a lot of the time you'll find it's probably easier to go really fast like that, rather than to really hold your balance on that one leg, hold it here in this split stance balance, and then bring that leg back. So really think about, if your balance is hard here, think about pushing down into the floor, pushing down into the floor to stay up. Trying to get both legs as symmetrical as possible. Really lifting those knees nice and high, stepping wider than you expect. Because a lot of the times you think you're stepping really wide, but it's actually a lot shorter than you had hoped. So think going a little bit further. I know there's lots to think about, and I talk a lot, I'm sorry. But hopefully all these cues are going to help you get the technique here. So we're only stepping forward, right, over the obstacle. You're using both of those legs, switching those legs as you need. And of course, please hold on if you need to. If you don't need to hold on, that's fine. You don't need to, but you're still got to do this slow, right? So I don't want to see anybody try to power through this really quick. Think slow and big movements. Really lift that leg and forward. So again, here we're working on that weight shifting. So you're weight shifting your center of gravity over your base of support. And then again, lift that center of gravity back to the middle of your base of support. So really feel that weight shift in your feet, in your legs. And I want you to get comfortable with the weight shifting, because that would really help you with your balance and your ability to move in general. Okay, let's do 4 more here. Otherwise, you'll probably get bored of this. 3 more, big lift. Get both legs even. Last 2. Well done. Last 1. And rest. Well done. Okay, now the challenge here is we're doing the same thing, except this time the obstacle block is going to be behind you. So I apologize in advance because I know this one's a hard exercise and you'll probably hate me a little bit after this, but I promise this is a really good exercise to practice. So your block, I want you to place it behind you. Can you see? It's behind me here. And what we're going to do here, just be a little bit careful. Please do hold on when you first start. So now the block's behind me. We're going to do the same exercise, but we're stepping backwards instead. So we're lifting up the leg nice and high, stepping back as far as possible. Can you see over the block? Over the block. And then you're lifting that knee as high as possible to come back to the middle. Same thing with the other side. Lift as high as you can. Step back over the block. And then you're going to lift that leg as high as possible and back to the middle. So a lot of the times when we do this backward stepping, do join me if you haven't already. When you do this backward stepping, you'll find it's pretty hard to shift your weight backwards. So this is why we need to practice. Because a lot of the times with Parkinson's, you find that you fall backwards. So maybe you're in front of the fridge and you're grabbing onto the handle of the fridge, you miss and you fall backwards and you can't catch yourself. Or for whatever reason, maybe you're in standing and you just fall back. So we want to really practice this kind of reactive stepping where you're practicing that weight shift again, right? So everything we're doing here is we're really trying to get your body used to and comfortable with shifting your weight in multiple directions. And you want to keep lifting those knees nice and high, stepping back as far as possible, and then lifting that knee as high as possible to bring it back to the middle. So trying your best not to touch the target on the floor, not to trip over it. You want to lift that leg as high as you can, even higher than you think is possible, and stepping out even further than you think is possible. Really feeling that weight shift in your legs, in your feet, feeling that pressure on the bottom of your feet, on the floor, the weight shifting over the soles of your feet. Good, well done, everybody. I know this one is tough. Stay with it. Please do this slow again. Don't try to do this too fast. Just work on lifting those legs as high as possible and stepping out as far as possible. Well done, everybody. Let's do 6 more here. Taking your time, 6 more in your own time. Trying your best not to touch that obstacle. Remember, if you feel unbalanced, think push down, okay? Push down into the floor. Push the floor away from you. Well done, everybody. 4 more. Three more. Big lift of the legs. Last 2. Make them good. Good. Last 1. And rest. Well done, everybody. I know that one's a tough one. We're going to put the block away now. Okay, so now that we've done our weight shifting, we're going to build on it a little bit. We're now going to practice turning on the spot. So you'll probably remember, for people who were here last time, we talked about when you're turning on the spot, a lot of the time people get a little bit stuck and then you start freezing. Now, one of the reasons for that is because, remember, we were talking about if your steps are asymmetrical, so if one leg is stepping more than the other, then you tend to bring on your freezing episode. So you can imagine as you're turning, the outside leg turns to walk a little bit further than the inside leg. So that's why it brings on that freezing episode when you're trying to turn. So we're going to try to do the turning in a bit of a different way. We're going to bring those legs nice and wide. So you can see I've got a chair on either side. You can also do this between a door frame or something like that. So you have a target on either side. Now, keeping your legs nice and wide, you're going to sway your whole body from side to side. So you probably remember this from last time if you've been here. You're swaying side to side. And it's okay if you can't do very much at first. You're just going to start with whatever weight shift you can do in the body, trying to sway side to side. Maybe imagine yourself as a palm tree swaying in the wind on a big, beautiful beach. And you're going to move the entire body side to side. Now, this is where the 2 targets on either side is super useful, because you can use that as a bit of a physical target where you try to touch the side of the wall or the chairs so that you can control how far you're weight shifting. Of course, we don't want to be leaning, right, on each of the targets. You just want to barely graze it and then go back to the other side. Nice and slow, trying to weight shift as far as you can. Really get comfortable with that weight shifting over each of your legs, transferring your weight from side to side and leg to leg. Good. Don't be afraid to let the body go as well. So I don't want it to be like this. Right? So not just the hips, but you want your whole body, even your shoulders, to sway. Now, you can either stay here and sway on the spot as slow as you can, or if you feel comfortable, I want you to try swaying and turning. So as you're swaying, I want you to really think about that visualization of that palm tree swaying in the wind. Get your shoulders moving too, right? So it's not just the hips, but it's the whole body. And you're going to keep swaying in order to turn. So this is a really good strategy to use if you ever get stuck when you're turning. Rather than keep trying to push through that freezing episode and trying to keep stepping even though your feet aren't moving, you can stop where you are, stop trying to move, take a few deep breaths just to reset everything, and then see if you can try the swaying motion like the palm tree in the wind instead, in order to help you get all the way around. Now, if you are turning, once you've done one circle around, I want you to try going in the other direction here, swaying side to side. Now, your knees don't need to be straight. You can bend them as you go, but I just want you to think about that swaying quality. So swaying quality is what we're looking for. We're trying to weight shift on those legs. Get those shoulders as far as possible. If you can't, moving the whole body. Make sure you turn in all the different directions. Now, keep that going. If you're somebody who would like to try marching, I want you to think swaying as well, and I want you to think stomping the floor. So notice here how I'm doing this nice and slow. I'm still doing a swaying motion, except I'm lifting the knee nice and high to match the height of the chair, and I'm stomping. So think stomping on the floor, making a nice rhythmic stomp. And as you stomp and you sway, you can then try to turn around with those stomps, lifting those knees nice and high as you're stomping, doing it nice and slow, thinking about stomping the floor as you turn, taking your time. It doesn't matter if it takes you 50 steps to turn, as long as you can get yourself around. And then you're going to try the same thing on the other side, trying to go nice and slow to avoid that freezing episode, and lifting the knees up nice and high. Really think about stomping into the floor. So of course, you don't have to do the stomping version. If you just want to do your sways that we did with the palm tree, please feel free to do that. Whatever works for you, because everybody's a little bit different. But we're just going to keep practicing this turning, because we will be using this turning technique a little bit later on. Good, well done. Hopefully you're all still with me. One more turn. Good, well done. Good, and rest. Okay, now we're going to practice approaching an obstacle. A destination, not an obstacle. So you probably remember last time we were talking about how freezing usually happens when you're approaching something, especially something that requires some problem solving or some form of thinking. So whether that's when you're about to go through a doorway, whether that's in a narrow environment, maybe a busy environment with lots of people around, or when you're about to approach a chair and then we get a little bit frozen right in front of the chair. So this is what we're going to practice. Now, a lot of times when you're freezing and you just can't get going, the best way is to actually still move in that direction you want to move, but in a different way. So rather than walking forward, you can try things like stepping sideways to get through, or stepping in a diagonal to get through, and that usually helps. So I've got a little band here. You don't need this, but I'm using this as a marker. So it's nice, bright, and red so you can see. I want you to imagine there's a U shape right in front of your chair. So this is my chair. Think about a U shape on the floor right in front of the chair. So I'm going to use my band to create a little U shape, like so. So hopefully you can see that. It's like a little U shape on the floor, like this, okay? Now, you're gonna start on one end of the U shape. So if you're at home, you can either imagine there's a U shape, or you can use some tape on the floor maybe, or a little scarf that you wanna mark on the floor. So with this U shape, you're going to ignore this chair, okay? You're gonna face away from the chair, and you're going to sidestep in this U shape. So thinking about sidestepping along this U shape, and then same thing the other direction. Just ignore the chair for now. You're just sidestepping along this U shape. Now, the reason we're doing this is because if you're somebody who gets frozen every time you approach a chair and you start freezing on the spot and it's hard for you to get to the chair, this is a really good trick you can use to help yourself get over that freezing episode in order to reach the chair that you would like to reach. So I'll explain that in a little bit. Ignore the chair for now. Keep practicing that side step, trying to lift the legs up nice and high, stepping out as wide as you can, avoiding these quick little steps, because as soon as you do the quick little steps, your freezing episode will likely be triggered. So go slow, okay? The slower the better here. Trying to keep your center of gravity over those legs so we're not falling forward, not falling back. Keeping your chest open. Practicing these side steps. Well done, everybody. Now, on the next one that you do, we're going to side step to the middle. So still in that U shape. We're side stepping to the middle of this U shape where you're in front of the chair, and we're going to have a sit down. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stand up again using the technique we already learned at the very beginning of this class, where you shift your way over those legs, push down into the floor as hard as you can to stand up, and then you continue sidestepping along the U. So now we're actually approaching the chair and sitting in the chair. So now if you're doing this at home and you're somebody who freezes every time you get towards a chair, this is what you can do. If you have a favorite armchair that you always sit in, feel free to use some tape if you don't mind it being on your floor. You can always have that U-shape taped onto the floor. So whenever you approach the chair, you can conform into that U-shape side stepping to get in front of the chair and then have a sit down. Let's do a few more rounds here, and then we'll add on slightly. Well done, everybody. Let's do one more of these. Good, and rest. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Now that we've learned that technique, I'm going to place my chair to the side, and I'm still going to put that U shape right in front of my chair, right? Now, we're going to practice approaching the chair now rather than just sidestepping in the U shape. So I'm going to stand on the other side, facing the chair, the other side of the room. And what I want you to do here is I want you to walk to your chair. And then when you get to your chair, I want you to start thinking about that side step over to the chair until you get to the middle of the chair, and then you're going to sit down. Using the same technique we've already learned for sitting to standing, you bring your weight over those legs and then pushing down into the floor to stand, and you're going to walk away again. Now, when you get to the other side of the room, I want you to practice either the palm tree swaying to turn around or the swaying and stomping to turn around. Really important is that you take your time when you're turning. Then when you've turned around, you're going to walk to the chair again. When you get to the chair, try the side stepping into that U shape again. Doing it nice and slow. Take your time, no rush. And then walking away again. Good. Practicing that turning, whether you're stomping or swaying. Nice and slow. And now, if you're somebody who's been here for many weeks, and this is a bit boring for you, you have the option of adding in a dual task. So keep moving, and I'll explain what a dual task is. Now, a dual task is basically when you're moving physically while also doing a cognitive skill at the same time. Now, the reason why a dual task is quite important for people who freeze is because freezing is not necessarily a physical problem. So you might think that freezing is because of your legs. It's actually not. Freezing is actually because of your brain's inability to divert attention to different things. So that's why you tend to freeze in situations that involve a little bit of problem solving, whether that might be you crossing a street, whether that might be you standing in a corner, whether that might be you approaching a doorway or a chair. But you'll find that it's your brain's inability to divert attention to different tasks and problem solve. So we're going to use dual tasking as a way to help us train that brain a little bit more. So as you're doing this physical task, I want you to name as many names as you can think of, as many, let's say as many girl names as you can think of, so we can make it more specific. So you're going to name as many girl names out loud as you can think of from the letters A all the way to Z. So as an example, starting from A, I might say Annabelle. And then the letter B, I might say Barbara. And the letter C, I might say Charlotte. Okay? So name as many girl names as you can think of from the letters A all the way to Z. I'm going to be quiet now so I can let you think. Just make sure you keep those legs going as you're thinking, okay? Making sure as you're thinking, we're still keeping those legs moving. Still thinking about those symmetrical steps as we're walking. Still swaying to turn or stomping to turn. Well done, everybody. Even if you get stuck on a letter, make sure you keep those legs moving as you're thinking. Well done, everybody. Keep it going. Good job, everybody. Let's do a couple more seconds here. Good, and you'll finish here. Okay, good job, everybody. Hopefully that wasn't too difficult, but hopefully you can see the idea of the dual task. We're going to now return to our seats and have a sit down. You're going to shuffle to the front of your chair. We're going to leave our arms by our side, shoulders down by your side, so try not to let them raise up to the ears, shoulders down, thinking about opening that chest nice and wide. We're going to sweep the arm across our body and upwards, and then from here, we're going to open our arms on a rotation to the side, your breastbone facing the side of the room, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lower the arms down. Same thing again, sweeping the arms up overhead, this time returning to the other side, reaching that breastbone around, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and back down. One more each side, sweeping the arms, opening that chest, rotating to the side, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lowering down. Last time, other side, crossing those arms, reaching up overhead, rotating the body over for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lowering back down. This time, we're going to shuffle even further forward to the front of our chair, and we're going to straighten one of our legs, keep the other one bent, hands on your hips, chest open, back straight, we're going to lean forward towards that straightened leg, and you should feel a stretch at the back of the thigh. So keep doing that. I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see what I mean. One leg bent, one leg straight, hinging forward, holding it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back up. Well done. Same thing, other side, straightening that leg, hinging forward at the hips, feeling that stretch at the back of the leg for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and back up. Good. Now this time, we're going to do an inner thigh stretch. So you're going to bring those legs a little bit wider. Think wider than your chair. Hands on the inside of those knees, and you're going to push with those arms and push those knees back and lean forward slightly. If you can't quite do that, don't worry. You can try to straighten one of those legs or bring one leg out and lean forward over that straight leg to feel a stretch on the inner thigh. If you're doing that version, please make sure you then also do the other side, but either version is fine. Good, come back up. Let's do that one more time. If you've done the one leg, please do the other leg now. For those who are doing both legs, do that one more time. Leaning forward, pushing those knees open. And back up, well done. Bring those legs back in. Now, we're going to do a chest stretch. So your palms are going to face forward. We're going to float those arms up in front of you, palm facing up. And then you're going to open those arms out, squeeze that shoulder blade, squeezing the shoulder blades together to open the chest and holding it here. So from the side, let me show you. It looks like this. Floating those arms out and then squeezing those shoulder blades. So the arms technically go behind your body, maybe not quite as far as what I'm doing. I'm exaggerating to show you, but you're squeezing those shoulder blades together to stretch the front of your chest. You want to hold that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relaxing back down. Let's do one last one. Floating those arms up, palms facing forward, opening the arms, shoulders down, squeezing those shoulder blades together, opening the front of the chest for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lowering back down. Last thing, we're going to reach your arms up to the ceiling as far as we can, and we're going to open those arms back down. Try it again. Reaching up, leaning back slightly, and then we're opening the arms back up. A little bit of upper back mobility here. One more. Reaching your fingers up to the ceiling, leaning back slightly like if you're doing a big yawn. And lower the arms down, and you are finished. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed the series of our freezing exercise for Parkinson's. If you had any feedback or any comments, we would love to hear from you. You can feel free to drop us an email if you would like at info@parkinson.bc.ca. And of course, please do visit our website as well for our future events, as we do have some events coming up in the works. So definitely have a look if you're interested. And if you do have any suggestions for any future classes you would like to see, let us know and we'll try our best to add these things in. But hopefully you've enjoyed the series and hopefully it was helpful. If you do have any more specific questions about freezing, you can feel free to drop me an email and I'll do my best to help answer those questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. I hope it was helpful. Let us know what you think, and we look forward to seeing you in our future classes. And thank you for the wonderful comments, everybody. I can see them all as you're typing them. Thank you for being a great class, and I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next time, hopefully. Send us an email if you would like. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Alana, for helping with our chat box today. Bye, everybody.